I know, stop it. Stop. If you stop laughing, then I'll stop laughing. It's good. You got me smiling. That's great. Yeah. You didn't have to get me smiling, but you got, now I like my cheeks hurt. And just stop. Yeah. Did you hear what Robert said? Yeah. He said it totally backwards. Are you helping him? Anyway, thanks. Okay, shh. We're up. Okay. What is wrong with me? Okay, right on. Stop. What? Just don't do that. Don't do that. Okay, here we are. Plural Positivity World Conference 2025. We are so stoked to be here. I'm very stoked to be here. My name is G. I'm the leader of the system we call Sean's. But before I begin, I do want to make one quick acknowledgement. We're recording this on the traditional and ancestral lands of the Quick-Wet'lam and the Katzie and other Coast Salish nations. This is their land, their beautiful land that we are recording on, and I consider it a real privilege to have the opportunity to do that. It's a very beautiful area, low mountainous, right on the west coast of Canada. It's a nice little lake nearby, lots of paths and salmon runs and things like that. It's just a real beautiful area, and thank you to them for their grace. So welcome, system leaders. I do have notes, and I'm not alone, and I'm grateful that I'm not alone. So I've got back up a little bit because I do tend to hit some trigger words, and they're not even bad words. They're just words that I don't know in the certain combination will trigger me away for a second, and that sort of breaks things up. And so I've got a good team that helps me make it smooth. But system leaders, thank you for being here wherever you are on your path, other plurals and perhaps the curious. I'm really grateful that you're here. So what I'll do is I'll start by telling a little bit about who we are. Then I will go into a couple of stories where we came from a very difficult place and what we did to solve that, and how great it turned out because of the things that we did. And I'll intertwine some of the techniques into those two stories. And then I'll get right into tips and tricks for leaders. And I just want you to know up front that this is a frank discussion, and it's a bold discussion, and there will be nothing gratuitous about the way we talk about things. To handle them in as safe and as practical way as possible in order to get the information safely to you, so you can use it for the information for yourselves. And then two more things. I want to say that this is a DID, Dissociative Identity Disorder, centric discussion, and the only reason for that is that's what we have. That's what my experience is. That's what our knowledge base is, and so that's what we know, and that's where our thoughts are directed. Is systems like that. But that said, the reason I mention that is we want to say that we accept, we support, and we acknowledge every form of plurals, full stop, and we support you no matter who you are. If you identify yourself as plural, we accept you, and we support you, and we acknowledge you, and if some of you are here, we welcome you with open arms. And that's that for the introduction. And I want to repeat that I'm absolutely thrilled and honored and humbled that you are here. I hope you find it useful and interesting, and I hope we figure out a way to put in some graphics and some details or notes or some such that'll give your eyes something more than my mug to look at for that time. So we'll see you in a little bit. Thank you for being here. Okay, time to get to some content. At least I'll get to, very briefly, who we are. We are Sean's. I am G. We have a lot of letters for some reason. Our system has about 13 or 14. The top number was probably about 21. We discovered several littles, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, that are now just one. And the ages ranged from about 4, just before 4 years old. That would be Ganga, and all the way to about 8 or 9. And that was Ari, and now that's Arby, and Arby has integrated, I guess you could call it. I don't know. We don't use a lot of terms that are typical in our community. I don't know why. Maybe because we're a pack of teenagers and we are anti-establishment or whatever. I don't know why, but we don't use a lot of those terms. But I have to say that I believe that they are integrated. So where are we with our integration and our COCON and all that? We were almost zero 4.5, 5 years ago. And now we're not integrated and not fused, I think is another term, I'm sure is another term that's used. But we have a lot of co-consciousness, Not only co-consciousness, but we also have a real quick, much quicker access to most of our historic data than we had when there was still such a separation between us and the system. So a ton of this work that I'm about to share with you, some of the tricks, has really led to making those walls in between us thinner and thinner and thinner, and in some cases the walls just completely disappeared, and we have the shared memories and the shared unfortunately it does flood in the shared experiences as well, and I'll get to that too. But so now it's pretty much myself. I'm around 60-70% of the time where I'm out and the first person. Maybe not that much, because we're so new at being integrated, as it were, or co-con and cooperation, that I have trouble even describing how it's coming and going. And to that point, it was D and 1 that actually started hanging out on Saturdays together to do chores and artwork. They both love to do artwork, and their artwork is completely different. But they didn't start out as friends. They started out butting into each other and trading off time intentionally, unintentionally, on accidental on purpose, as it were. But eventually they became very good friends, and I was actually quite envious of the way that they seemed to be in the books, and seemed to be in what I could figure out on my own and experience on my own. They seemed to be like this, and able to switch and come out and back and out and back and cooperate and have a ball, and yet I was still very, very separated. And it wasn't until quite a bit more therapy that I was able to, I guess, accept my situation, because denial is if you think that denial goes away with progress, there's still lots of time that there is denial. And in fact, I do have an alter. I'm pretty sure I know who he is, but all of a sudden somebody will say in my head, it was like, what the heck? What the heck? Like, as if, what's going on here, or what is, and almost as instantly he'll be gone as soon as I start talking to him. I think that's I think it might be my predecessor just coming back and having some kind of experience in the front, and then retreating back to whatever wherever he goes because of his emotional state. But anyway, so denial it does carry on. So day to day, it's 1 and D and I, and we have a protector named T, like I said. We have Arby and his crew. We have Robert. And Robert is our only older person, and he says he's 72, but we think he's been around as a replacement adult for when we were young. So we peg him and we tease him about it, that he's in his 80s. But anyway, he takes over our throat, and he sounds completely different, as if you were trying to mimic the sound of an old man with your voice. That's kind of what he sounds like. Dee sounds, she obviously sounds like a man, but to us, she sounds so feminine, and especially internally. But she has completely different sort of mannerisms and expressions, and one is just pretty confident and cocky, but you couldn't tell the difference between the two of us very often, other than a more even face, because I tend to sag on this side, and for reasons we can't figure out. But I haven't had a stroke. It just sags when it's me. So that's who we are. We are Sean's. We're right in the middle of everything, but we've made a ton of progress. So in the beginning, I'll just give you a typical day in the beginning to show you how far we've come. This would be a day for me. My days were much shorter then, so I was getting about 2 hours, and in those 2 hours to 3 hours, I would first of all, there would be, and trigger warning, there would be fresh cuts on our body, and sometimes cuts over top of cuts, and there was so I have to deal with that, and sometimes clean it up, bandage it up, and so that would be one of the very first things. But that wouldn't last very long before I was gone again, and then all of a sudden I'm on the balcony, and which is right there, and trigger warning again. It's suicide ideation, and I would be on the balcony trying to talk us out of jumping off the balcony. We're on the top floor of our apartment. And I'm talking a good, I don't know, hour and a half of serious negotiation with a very, very distraught alter that just wants to stop, just wants to end it. And for a while that terrified me, of course, and it was very, very difficult, and my goal was always to get us, and I was still confused as to what we all were and are, and had no idea of a lot of the things that I learned later through therapy and from content. And so, come out, deal with the cuts, try to figure out what time of day it is, whether I've missed a day or more, do a bit of detective work around, find myself on the balcony negotiating us, and generally the intention was to get us to call the crisis line. And that was always the end game with those negotiations, was get this person to agree to allow me to bring us to the crisis line. And the funny thing about that, and I know that's morbid, but the funny thing about that is the poor crisis line people, so many times, as soon as we got on that phone, he seemed satisfied that cycle had been done. And so he's gone, and I'm like calm again, and I'm rational, I can think, I'm not breathing heavy, and all of a sudden I'm talking to somebody on the crisis line, and I'm like, yeah, so anyway, how's your night going? So that, I guess that's, sense of humor is really, I believe, one of the real important things that you need to have as a leader. You need to be able to bang your toe, as it were, in your mind and in your life, and laugh instead of curse. And it takes some practice, but as you practice the humor and looking at the lighter side of things, the humor is a real lifesaver, and it can't be overstated. In fact, I've got a post-it note up. I don't know who wrote it, and I don't know who made the joke, but one of us did, and it says, "I don't have DID. No, I'm not multiple, but I think some of the others are," which I think is really, really funny. So that was the days. Nowadays, I'm here most of the time. There's no self-harm. We are no longer a suicidal threat. We've lost 100 pounds. We have a super healthy diet. We've reconciled with our children, because there was some, we were alcoholics, and there was some trouble with that. No violence, nothing like that. Didn't lose our job, but certainly most of the negative effects of being an alcoholic. And I know that addiction is not an uncommon experience comorbidity of dissociative identity disorder, OSDD. So, and we have 6 grandchildren, and we get to spend time with them. And the older ones know that we're multiple, but they're not quite at the age to really make sense of it. But a couple of them do, and accept us. Our children accept us the way that we are. So what I'm saying is the difference with 4 years ago, when I spent days, almost every day, weeks on end, sometimes in the pouring rain on that balcony, begging us not to end it, with searing pain on our legs and arms from cuts. The difference from then to now is why I want to share some of these techniques with you, because if you need to get farther along, either for really difficult reasons like that, or because you have goals where you want to get to, I hope that we can help you shorten the time that it takes you to get there, and give you some maybe different ways to deal with some common problems with this differently ordered. So that's who we are. So I'm going to tell you a couple of stories, and they're success stories, and then I'll get into the tips and tricks for leaders, and we'll move through actually quite quickly then, because there's quite a bit of material to cover, and I've burned quite a bit of time, but I think the context is worthwhile. One of the things, and I want to say as leaders, as a leader, congratulations. You now have a pretty difficult job, but what I mean is what I really want to say about leadership is it's a commitment. It requires a certain kind of person, a certain kind of humility and determination and love, and even if you use none of the things that I'm going to tell you that we've done, you've already brought your system farther along, because you're at this conference, you're listening to this video, you're watching other people, you're participating in community, safe community, and the community that is founded on good knowledge and is run by good people. So you're already well on your way. But it does require a serious commitment, because as in any leader, everybody's going to rise to your level. So they're going to be as determined as you are, they're going to be as loving as you are, they're going to be as patient as you are, etc. And they're going to be hyper aware of cracks in you, and that's been my experience. Consistency is what really works, because abused alters, abused people, criminals in prison, they're very suspicious by nature. They're always looking for the crack, the proof that you're not real, not really kind, that you're not really honest, or proof that they're not as good as you're telling them that they are. So, and you can't fool them, you can't trick them, and even the more that you get co-conscious, and the more you get shared information and experiences, even more they're going to be able to tell when you're sincere, or when you're not, or when you're weak, or when you're strong, when you're sad, when you're happy. So you can't fool them, you can't trick them, and please, if you have difficulty with some alters, don't punish them. They've already been punished, and don't try to push them aside, or ignore them, or suppress them, because and don't wish them gone, of course, or to be quiet or silent, because you are a system, you are parts that is a whole, and that's every part of you, and at some point in time, every single part in you had a purpose, and now some of those things that used to work really well don't work anymore, and that's obvious, everybody knows that, but some of the behaviors that happen when your system is discovered seem like, no, they could never ever have been helpful. And I'll tell you about Ari, and that to illustrate that. That'll be my first story, is about Ari. Now, Ari showed up about 4 years ago. He could be anywhere at any time. In other words, he was always listening, and his favorite thing to do, for sometimes hours at a time, was to scream full blast in our mind the most vile, mean, cruel, vicious, terrible things. And he, at the top of his lungs, much like a Hitler speech, and it was nonstop, and it went on. And in fact, after about 6 months, and it got worse and worse, we had to take shifts being with Ari to endure him, even though we had T, a very, very strong protector, and he would do it for hours at a time. But even it would just be so much. And the really difficult part was if something happened in the day, or you did something wrong, or something happened and you had an emotion, a self-conscious emotion about it, he'd latch onto that, and that would be his focus. So, and I think working with Ari really taught me a lot of patience, and a lot about, and gave me a lot of curiosity. How possibly could this have served us at some point in time? But when you think about it, if you have a violent father, you have no babysitters, you're too young to be at home by yourself, but you're under threat of violence. This is when we were about grade 1 or 2, I suppose. We were left alone all day, a key around our neck, but we lived in fear. But if there was crumbs on the carpet or something like that, and he came home, there would be a very violent reaction, because he would use any excuse, our father, to do things to us, terrible things. And so here was Ari then. Exactly that. He was screaming and yelling and pointing at the crumbs and yelling and screaming, and what that would do is that would protect us, because we would clean that up, because the only way to get him to shut up was to pick up the crumbs. Now, this is all, again, frog DNA and a lot of retrospection, but this is we're very confident in this information. So that curiosity about that led me to take a different approach and look with Ari, but I never took a negative approach. But it was difficult to be generous of spirit in those situations. So we did a lot of journaling. We always included him in the journal. We always gave him praise in the journal. There are some that called him Angry Ari. Actually, his name was Arnie at the time, Angry Arnie. And that went on for a long time, months and months and months. So it made all our days. And so you can imagine what it was like back then. And he carried on that way. And there was a time that my relentless caring about him, trying to talk to him. I talked constantly when he was screaming. I wrote constantly everywhere. You don't need to do that. You're safe. We're safe now. Everything's different now. This is the year. This is the time. But I didn't know how young he was at the time. And so eventually I got him to make a couple of deals, and he was quiet for a week or so, but then it came right back. And there was a couple of times that I got him to just yell music. He would just repeat musical lyrics and say them very badly, but over and over again, which was actually kind of a relief. So that was Ari. Now, this the person I talked to you about earlier. Okay, well, anyway, so that was Ari then, and through consistency and non-judgment and care and relentless affection, kindness, love, patience, and forgiveness, Ari finally did come around. And Ari he's the altar that took all of our other little ones, and he now cares for them. And Arby is a joyous 8-year-old boy. And he doesn't yell and well, he has his times if he doesn't get an apple after swimming or something like that, but he certainly, he just gets to live as a boy. And I think the two lessons there is that there was a very difficult altar and a very difficult situation. And through what I will tell you about in a moment, the 4 pillars, we were able to bring him along to a success story. And the biggest success story about Arby, and the best feeling in the world, is reparenting. Because Arby lives a life now that he didn't get to have. And when we go to the pool, he gets to swim underwater. We spend a lot of time underwater when we go to the pool. We don't do laps, but we get lots of exercise. And there were some challenges with that as well, because you can't have because he wanted to play with other children, but you can't have a 62-year-old man going up to little children in a pool. It's just you have to do other things. So there was certainly a learning process with having him having a place to have fun, but he's adapted extremely well and has an absolute ball by himself. And every once in a while, when there's enough adults around, then he does get to play with some kids, and it's just like being a grandpa, I suppose. But he's just so fun. So reparenting is one of the biggest blessings that can come out of progress. That's for sure. So I'll get to 1, and then we'll start straight into tips. 1 was just a little light, WHUN. He was just a little light. There was 2 little lights. One of them was gone AWOL. His name is Busby. Now he did come out, but anyway, 1 was a little light, and I knew he was somebody. I knew it was something. I just had a feeling. So he was brought along mentally everywhere we went, and included with everything that we went. And eventually he did come out. And he did a lot of self-harm, and like I said in the introduction, I'm very grateful to be able to share these stories, that they've trusted me with them. Some stories we've agreed not to talk about, especially with the SA on D side, but that they're allowing me to share some of the more difficult parts of their life is. I really am grateful. So this was 1's life. He was cutting self-harm, a lot of it. And I remember being curious at the time. Curiosity is a real asset, by the way. Being curious. I was curious, is he hurting us to punish us or get us to do something different? Or is he, and we had no co-consciousness at the time. Or is he hurting himself to punish himself? Because people do self-harm for different reasons, and it turns out that what he was doing was punishing himself, and he was actually very careful about it. We have some scars where he made some mistakes, but for the most part, he used a very sharp blade, and he was very. He made sure that it wasn't so deep that it would leave too bad of permanent scars. We just have some numbness all the way up our body where he had done those things. And but it was very, very messy and very, very painful nonetheless. But there's some hope in that, the curiosity to why, and then why isn't it, because you hear about some other cutting that is pretty catastrophic and involves hospital and lots of scarring, and it's a very difficult thing. And then at nighttime, because at nighttime he would take us out, and he would roam around at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, and he would spend time with homeless people, and of course we were not getting any sleep at that time, and plus it's a bit dangerous in a way, and so that was 1. He was angry. He couldn't figure out the year. He wouldn't believe it. He was he was aggressive in his writing, not overly, but he didn't like adults whatsoever. So it was very, very difficult. And so he was only out at nighttime when he took over the body, and that's when the self-harm would happen, and that's when he would take off. And that was routine over and over and over again. But eventually, he did come out. And he met Dr. Bradshaw, and I can't describe what happens when alters come out in therapy, especially back then. I can now, but I just wasn't around, and there's just Dr. Bradshaw has a really, he's very skilled and very gentle and very experienced, and to my surprise, because I thought there's no way that alters are going to come out on their own, but they did, some of them, and one was one of them, and now we had to bribe him, and that was with Spider-Man. 3D, or what do you call it? Virtual reality, pardon me. Oh, now I sound like an old man. Virtual reality Spider-Man. So he would get 45 minutes of Spider-Man if he would do 15 minutes of talking with Dr. Bradshaw. So basically, he played video games for $170 an hour. But the genius of that with Dr. Bradshaw was this is the first time that one was out during the day, and it introduced one to the daytime. And that started to make him curious for whatever reason, and that led for him to I don't know exactly what happened in therapy, but a lot of OEI, which is an observational experiential integration, and different techniques were used in therapy to get one to get what he needed out from trauma, and he adjusted. And I need to get to material now, so I will just tell you that now one is fronts a lot. He spends a lot of time at work. He does he learns all our technology. He will be doing our editing, which he just learned, and he's our front guy. When we're in difficult situations, he can mask as me. And when I need that, and that's a different story altogether, but he's a great artist, and he's doesn't go out at nighttime anymore, but he's still really, really good with homeless people and people in general. He's just so in tune with people's emotions. He's just a top-notch, friendly, honest, hardworking, joyous person. So there's another person that's stuck at 14, but is now living, instead of the street rat that he was at 14, because we were runaways, he's now living a life of a 14-year-old in a penthouse apartment, a modest penthouse, I'll just say. But so he's a great success story. So and that's in just a few years that we've gone from those situations to those kind of success stories. So I'm going to cut it there, and then when you see me again, which will be right away. Actually, I might as well just go straight into things. That's 35 minutes, so that's 45 minutes so far. Now, I'm going to need to go through this material fairly quickly. Now, two things on that. We're going to have a live Q&A if everything still goes according to plan. I don't even know how to do that and how that'll happen, but they'll teach me and tell us. And so I'll be happy to expand on anything or answer any further questions or take any feedback at that time. And then also we'll certainly make ourselves available, myself available, for conversations after or beyond the conference if somebody wants to explore some of this further or just communicate and connect in any way. I'd be more than happy to do that. So the first one is personal time. And personal time is important to get personal time, but depending on where you are with your co-consciousness, or how many there are of you, how much they come and go, how organized you folks are, it's virtually impossible to get real personal time, because you have one body. Much of your systems, different use of the word systems, are shared. Even much of the brain is shared. That's why you're able to, if you have an internal world, that's why you're able to go into the internal world and leave stuff or leave information, and people can go to that same spot, because there's places that you do share, but depending on how that is. So what I recommend, if you're having trouble getting personal time, is coming up with now this depends on where you are in your path. It depends. If you're a brand new leader, this might be a little too advanced, but if you're somewhere down the road to some more organization and communication, what I did was I got an agreement away with the system for us to have private time. So at one time it was really elaborate, because everybody is like, well, let's make sure all the littles are okay, and one wasn't around then, so he was like, let's make sure the 2 lights are taken care of and the sign is there for them in case they wake up on what to do and where to go. And so it was very elaborate. So it took like 5 minutes to get about 20 minutes of personal time by doing all these steps. And what it was an agreement that if we do all these steps, then T would step as a wall in between. He wouldn't invade my privacy, and anybody that was trying to get to the front, he would act as a sort of a doorman and say, not right now, how can I help you? And truthfully, that is an agreement with yourself and your mind. And it doesn't give you, because Robert's here all the time. So even if I want personal time, he's here all the time. Arby, same thing. But what it does is it creates a feeling of separation in your mind, and eventually it becomes a habit of theirs too, to just back off and give that time. And it does dissolve pretty quickly. I usually get 20 minutes, half hour, sometimes a little bit longer for personal time, but it's valuable. It's valuable even if it just feels that way, even if you just got to buy into it a little bit, but that sort of cooperation feels good. And so if you can get some personal time, or you aren't getting any, maybe you can make some sort of agreement like that. And now all I do is I thank Dee. I tell people I'd like to take some personal time, and then Dee looks after basically the internal situation. I don't want to get into too many of the other alters with difficulties. But I thank her, and then I also thank T, and then I imagine T coming out in his room inside, and there's a wall there, and so it only takes like 30 seconds, and then I have that time, and then I can feel it when it starts to dissolve, because I get pressure forward, and or somebody will say something or talk. But Robert won't talk to me in that time, and T seems very, very respectful. So, and it's not like I'm up to anything, but it's just some downtime. Just some downtime. You as leaders will understand that. Just some downtime is quite valuable. So, and so the next one is talking out loud. We do a lot of talking out loud when we're alone. And sometimes outside and stuff, just because it's such a habit of ours. And what I found about talking out loud, and other people talking out loud, and even when we're having an internal dialogue, it's not like we're going, he said, she said, whatever. It's one of us talking out loud. But it's that vibration. That vibration is very comforting. It feels good. The alters like it. They seem to really respond well to talking, and so I recommend it. If you have the opportunity, excuse me, if you have the opportunity to talk out loud in a safe way and in a private way, give it a try. And focus on that vibration. Be soothing. even and calm, and you'll find that it has a real positive effect on your system, and others will do it too. So that's one of the things. Now, the caution, so that's the benefits of it. The caution about talking out loud is it's hard to reverse. So if like now that we're integrating more and we're trying to become more of a whole, then so we're trying to practice being like neurotypical people, as it were, and so we're trying to do quiet time, and so when we go quiet, they're not getting things like, what's wrong? What's going on? What's wrong? Why aren't we talking? Is there something wrong? So it creates a level of anxiety and discomfort in the system. It's kind of withdrawal from talking out loud, I guess. So that would be the caution I would give to it. So whatever you do, just do it gradually this way and gradually the other way if you want to remove it again. And the same goes for covert versus overt as a system. I don't want to patronize, so I don't want to talk down. If you know what covert is and overt is, anyway, I apologize for explaining it, but covert is just like it sounds. Nobody knows in your community, anywhere around, at work, your friends, they don't know that you are multiple. And overt is, just being out in the open with it. There's lots of people both ways, and lots of systems both ways, and I support both ways fully. And we're kind of a hybrid, and I would guess that there's a lot of hybrid, in quotes, people out there that way as well, where you're out and overt and showing your multiplicity on front of a smaller group of people, but in general public, etc., you're more covert. I suspect that a lot of systems would be that way. The only thing I would say about deciding to be overt if you're not now is that's very difficult that you can't put that back in the barn. You can't, that once that's done, once you're out, and so it has to be done with some forethought, and that's important. So that would be the caution there too. Now this goes along with it. There's no particular order here. These are the way that I wrote them down. And by the way, there's going to be some fundamentals you're not going to see here, because these are the things that I thought of and wrote on notes and the whiteboard, and we have a little recorder, so I record that or send a message to myself on the phone every time I thought of something, ever since I decided to make this presentation. So there's swaths of things that should be in this presentation that might not be. So these are more the unique things that we use that came to mind. So in the same vein as the throat sound and talking out loud, is we do what we call chest thumps and high fives. So a high five for us is like that. So it just happened naturally one time. We were trying to figure out how to high five. We were dancing in the living room, and of course you're just one body, and you feel like, like I'll go to the kitchen and I'll come back expecting to see the others there as if they're still, and so it's quite, and I'm sure you have similar experiences. So anyway, so a high five is a great thing to do, because you can if a young alter or an alter does something cool, you can, hey, high five, let's high five it. And then also it encourages cooperation and co-consciousness, because there's a lot of coordination. And at first you're just doing it with yourself, right? You're just doing it, and they're hearing it, listening to it, or knowing it. But eventually you'll get some push. You're doing it kind of together, and it's a great feeling. It's just like a high five anybody. It's a good feeling. And the other thing that we do is, and this came out organically as well, but we do this. So this is kind of our thing when we've done something good, and just to say hello, and so it's just 1, 2, 1, 2, 2. But that again, that stimulation, the sound and the feeling in the body is, when people are together, is unifying and comforting and positive. So anything like that would work, but that's what we do. So I made a note of This is one that's important. As the leader, you need to, it's kind of like in the airplane. When the oxygen mask comes down, put yours on first. So if you're going to be the leader and you're going to lead them somewhere, and you're going to go somewhere, and you're going to go there intentionally. So you're going to need the skills, you're going to need the patience, you're going to need the awareness, you're going to need the self-love, you're going to need the self-forgiveness. You're going to need a lot of tools, and you got to have your game. So the first thing, like, do these things with yourself first. Love yourself first. Be patient with yourself. Be kind and forgiving with yourself first. And get a hold of that. Get there with your therapist the best that you can, or with your best friend, or with whoever you look up to or hang with that can feed you positive energy. Make you the best that you can be. Be good to yourself. Love yourself as truly as you can. And if you can't right away, that's where a lot of energy should go. Because the people inside you that are looking to get somewhere with you, they're going to rise to your level of those things. And they are going to emulate what you do over time. And they'll emulate that love. So do that to yourself first. It can't be faked. It needs to be done. It's important work, and it'll pay off. And I wrote it this way: I work on yourself. You will need the strength, skills, and clarity to work between sessions. Put your O2 mask on first. So, okay. And the other one, next one rather, things are or can get complicated. So think simplicity, because things can get carried away. For example, inner world. Once you're able to make an inner world and it becomes popular, and there's a lot of input. Well, let's put a this there, and let's put a that there, and then you might use it for solutions. Somebody needs a meditation room. Oh, let's paint the whole thing. Let's be on an island. But what happens, and those are all wonderful things, but everything else is going to get complicated as well. Therapy is going to get more complicated. You're going to be experiencing some of the traumas that some of the altars hold, because those barriers are going to go away. You're going to need to be employed or do something day to day. Things are complex with a system, and they get more complex before they get less complex. So keep things as simple as you possibly can. We got advice to do, well, everybody can fill out paperwork, and they can have their likes and dislikes and their foods and stuff like that. Plus, we can keep track of how many attacks and panic attacks, flashback attacks, nightmares, how many hours sleep we get, what the food we're eating. We had a food log at one time where people, if they participated, would write in the food log so that we could know what we were eating and when we were eating it, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So you can bog your whole life down with a really complex inner world that takes a lot of time and attention and is always evolving and growing, and it could be a wonderful place to be. But if you want to go somewhere else, in other words, you want to progress in a different way than just living functional multiplicity, which is a perfectly fine way to live, absolutely. But if you want to do something different, or you want to eventually come together, then the simpler you can make things, the better. Absolutely. So even meetings, routines, and activities, simple is better. Just simple is better. And what did I write here? Oh. So even if you have limited time out, if you are the leader, then it's and time for, I think, other people is at 7 o'clock I'm going to do this, at 8 o'clock we're going to do that, tomorrow morning at 11 I have a meeting, etc., etc. But if you're coming and going because of triggers or activations or whatever reason, or other alters, triggers, activations, or whatever reasons, if you're coming and going, life becomes more like, okay, when I get back, I'm probably going to have this much time. What can I do in that much time? What should I do? What will I do? What is sort of my priority? So even if you have limited time out as a leader, you still got to get all of those things done. So think of when you typically get your time out, and then think in terms of that and what you can accomplish or hope to accomplish in that period of time. Rather than saying, oh, I missed 8 o'clock's whatever, and now it's 9:30, or now it's the next morning. So now what do I do about that? So there's a little gray area there, but it's just the note I made. Here's another thing that we had. There's a lot of promises made in a system. There's a lot of deals that are made. You're negotiating a lot, especially when things are disordered or going wrong. And this is just a trick I found that works. So, and I call it promise made, promise kept. And it was in a meeting where somebody named Andrew, one of our alters, he was a bit of a troublemaker. He was constantly promising the other ones something, and there was a lot of promises going along, and a lot of promises being broken, because it's easy to promise, but it's a habit of that people have. So I introduced a thing called promise made, promise kept, because I thought, what can I do in these meetings that'll bring that in a little bit tighter? And so when Andrew said, I promise that I'm going to do this, and I was like, okay, how are you going to do that? Have you already thought of the way that you can keep your promise? Do you have a way to keep your promise already while you're promising? Because a lot of people, forget systems, just people in general, promise things and they don't even know how they're going to accomplish those promises. As an alcoholic, I can tell you that happens a lot. So I came up with promise made, promise kept. So that is made promises like, if we do 1 or 2 a month, that's amazing, because if you make a promise in our system, you have to already have and be able to tell how you're going to keep that promise. So it really keeps it sincere, and it's just a neat little trick that seemed to work really well. Okay, interacting and or helping other systems. We've met other systems. We've had an online communication with them. We've had Zoom calls. We found one system that they were way back on the path and we were quite a ways further, but we recognized some of the things and they were very dysregulated. That's the word I couldn't think of earlier. They were extremely dysregulated, and I saw that right away, and we started communicating, and we were really able to help them. They found community with us. We shared the things that we were learning at the time in therapy, and this is some time ago. We became quite entangled with each other's situation, and if you're a system, you're generally kind, giving, helpful, and certainly if you've been abused, you might be a people pleaser, and you might do anything to get, and plus it feels really good to help somebody, especially somebody that has the same thing as you do. But my point is that's fine. But there's downside to that, because it's distracting from your own therapy. It's confusing your alters. Sometimes alters get interested in other alters, and we had that experience. So you have to manage that. Again, the simplicity thing. I guess it goes in order of importance again. Take care of yourself first. Then your next priority is your system. Always your system. Always your system. And for 2 reasons, that's what's really important, and that's what's going to get you there. But second of all, again, you're being watched all the time, And if all of a sudden another system is more important, or your things are suffering there, then you could have dysregulation at a time in your therapy when that just makes you slide back too far. I mean, everybody does 2 steps forward and a step back at times. That happens, but you don't want to have too much of that too early with your system. So that would be the caution that I would get. The benefit is, gosh, it feels really good to connect with somebody, and they get it and you get it, and you can help them, and you see the joy in their face and the progress that they make. Those are the benefits, and the cautions, like I just went through, can be quite dramatic. So that's how I would that's how I feel about interacting and helping other systems. And not against it. I think it's a fantastic thing, but there's a right place for it. Your system's your most important thing. You're the leader. That's when, if you agree to be that person, then you have to be that person all the time. It's relentless. It's tiring. I get very exhausted. Often when I get to Dr. Bradshaw's, the first thing out of my mouth, I'm so tired. Even though we're quite active, you can see I'm a bit ADD, but we're just drained. That's it. Oh yeah, so this might be an obvious one. Find and explore activities. Use as YOUS. Or many of yous enjoy, like cooking, art, gardening, walking, dancing, goofing around, swimming, exercise. If you can lock on to 1 or 2 things, and you only need 1 or 2 alters that like that one thing, because there's a lot of sort of peer momentum that happens when you start to glom on, and 1 or 2 alters get some joy out of something. Like cooking, we really like. Not everybody likes that, but 3 or 4 or 5 of us will be in the kitchen when Dee is cooking, and now when one, I forgot to mention, one is just an excellent cook. That was probably another abrupt cut, so I can apologize rather than writing it there like I did last time. So sorry about the abrupt cut. This is all new to us, and so that's that. But I think I am going to talk about the 4 pillars. Besides therapy, the 4 pillars has probably had the most comprehensive effect and deepest effect, and has really helped in every aspect of what I've had to deal with as a leader in a system. And I'm almost a little hesitant to talk about it, because 4 pillars sounds kind of corny, and who doesn't have pillars, and who doesn't know about pillars and strength and all of that. But I'll tell you how I came up with them, and how we use them. And maybe you don't use something like that, but some sort of foundation or constitution, or an agreement of principles, whatever you want to call it, and whatever is appropriate in context for your system, depending on who and how many and where you are in your path, etc. But I do recommend having. That was one of those dissociations. My crew isn't quite still with me here, but I'll push through. Wow, that's really hard. I'll leave it there for now. Oh yeah, I might have, if I left that in there. That's well, you know what that is. So anyway, that's the way it is sometimes. And like I said before, we're still right in the middle of it. And one of the tips that we put up, or that one put up, says, goodness, this is happening again. Oh, do things before you're ready. And we've done this before we were ready, and it's been a heavy lift. and a joyous one, and we've had to relive so many things, so we're getting just sleeps full of nightmares and what have you, and but it's been so well worth it, and I highly recommend being as brave as you possibly can in your situation, while being safe, not pushy, just brave, and try to nurture that in your system, because this experience has really brought us a long ways, and I hope has had value for you folks as well. So what worked? So what worked? And what did work? And I ended up later calling them the 4 pillars, but it was kindness, love, patience, and forgiveness. And like Arby says now, because we say this, because it's our belief, forgiveness, gobs and gobs of forgiveness. That's what you get. You get gobs and gobs of forgiveness, and it's a really that's a real important one. But love, kindness, patience. You need lots of patience, and forgiveness. And I'll give you an example. What was her reaction to it? Dee had a bunch of artwork destroyed, and so it was, I think it was the first time she lost a significant amount, and we were also going through disappearing pages and a little later the disappearing journals, and she said well, I am grateful that I can do art, so I can do more art, something like that. And she just took the entire high road. So that forgiveness was, I guess, that she sure displays it. So those are the 4 pillars that we go by, but it's a little bit different than that, because once I introduced it as, formally 4 pillars to our system, there was by that time, this is only maybe a year ago, I don't know, a week, a month, a second, and oh, don't do that to yourself. Okay, this time I'm going to pause it. I'll be right back. I could tell that one was going to take a little while. So as soon as I introduced it to the system, then with the participation and the enthusiasm with the system in meetings by then, everybody is like, well, we should have a pillar for this and a pillar for that. Because you can come up with a lot of things that have to do with strength and patience, and so we ended up with like all these suggestions for pillars. So and that sort of dilutes the whole process, and again, simplicity, and I'm always thinking simplicity. So I thought, okay, well, I do know neurologically, genuine gratitude is a salve for anxiety. It absolutely is. It's been proven scientifically that it lowers cortisol levels and decreases anxiety. So real gratitude is very therapeutic. So I thought, well, why don't we do this? And I introduced it. We can't, because you can't expect everybody to live by all those 4 things all the time. If someone does something, or you're going through an extreme thing, depending on who you are, it's just impossible to always be patient or forgiving. And so I said, let's have gratitude as a 5th stand-in pillar. And so the way it works is, if, say, you just can't have any patience, then you slide the gratitude in, and you still have the 4 pillars, and it still holds everything up, and it just works perfectly. And the only thing that doesn't work is just placating it, just saying, listing off a bunch of obvious things for gratitude. The only way that gratitude actually has that chemical drop in your brain is that it is something real and sincere. So the magic of that is that focuses the mind on searching for something that you're genuinely grateful for, so you can slide that pillar in. And and once you think of something sincerely with gratitude, that really does happen in your brain, and it really does change your point of view. And then suddenly there's a whole bunch of things that you're sincerely grateful for, and so gratitude just slides in there, and just by magic takes care of that missing pillar at that moment for that emotion, or for that altar. And so it worked very, very well. And so say so it's the worst catastrophic day, and everything goes wrong, and you don't feel, maybe you only feel love, but you don't feel kind, and you don't feel patient, you don't feel forgiveness. Well, the same thing goes. The gratitude can stand for one or all of the pillars, and so sometimes you just have to do it where you just going off gratitude. But if you can find a way to make that work, you have an actual physical change in the brain that you all share. Part of the brain you all share. It floods all of your situation. So that kind of makes the 4 pillars, whatever they might be, pretty useful and pretty powerful with a little practice. And it certainly worked. It certainly worked for us and for me. So I'm not suggesting, like I said before, that you use those 4 pillars or that approach, but having some kind of thing that way that you can believe in, and that you can advocate to the others, or get them to go along and try it out. It was really powerful, because it just leveled up our ability to deal with difficult situations and change in the system, and changes in, like the recent change from RE to RB were remarkable, but still they were changed, and we're changing all the time, as you are. So having something like that is I highly recommend it, and that has just accelerated my ability to be a leader to them, and their ability to be awesome people, just like they actually are. So I think I'm going to end it there. I'm not exactly sure how long the entire thing is, and I'm not entirely sure there's anybody still watching. If you are, I'm incredibly grateful, and I will record a little conclusion as well, and we'll call it a wrap. So anyway, thank you so very kindly for listening, and hope you got something valuable, even 1 or 2 things for yourselves, and made it worthwhile. And I hope you enjoy the conference and the community, and I hope we maybe even see you or chat with you in the room that we don't know anything about yet, but will. Anyway, thank you so much. Take good care. Bye. I do want to give a couple of thank yous, the Plural Association, and if we are actually at the conference, and you are actually watching us at the conference, that's through some delays and some grace from them, and look what they've put together, not just once, but now 7 times, and what they've done for the community as a whole is astounding and admirable, and not surprising, but always impressive. So we want to thank them, and we want to thank the army of volunteers that put the whole thing together every time, and work selflessly to organize an event such as this. And it's got a lot of moving parts and a lot of things that can go wrong. Been to a few of them, and they can be challenging, and so kudos to you guys as well. I want to also thank our Dr. Richard Bradshaw. But Dr. Bradshaw has been working with dissociative identity disorder for over 35 years, and I believe we're his 30th, and you in the community would understand that that's not a surprising number, considering there's as many of us in the world as there are redheads, as it were. So thank you to Dr. Bradshaw. Without his love and and kindness and his expertise and his experience and his dedication and his patience and his forgiveness, is just his skill, we wouldn't be here. And I mean, we literally wouldn't be here. So kudos to him. And then the third thank you goes to our system. We had to make some agreements, and there was some pushback, and I did lose a few days a couple of times, even though we got an agreement up front when I introduced the idea to them. We did get agreement up front, and but once we started to get into the details, and it really hit home on the things that we had to talk about, and we don't get carried away, and there's nothing gratuitous with regards to trauma and that sort of thing. It's all in context and handled well. And but I want to thank the system for giving me the permission to illustrate some of the more difficult times and some of the behaviors that they had in their initial when they were first found themselves, just like we all do, in as part of the system, and dealing with that reality, and also overcoming some of the habits and purposes that were extremely valuable and heroic at a time when we were very young and vulnerable. But some of those solutions then, of course, as you know, don't work now anymore. So thank you very much to my system for this opportunity to share some of this and do some good back for the community. It's very humbling, and I feel honored.